Hello and welcome back to those of you who have subscribed. I really appreciate it. For those of you who have come across this, please have a look at the other videos and subscribe and like if you are interested in seeing my CD collection from start to finish. I'm currently still in the alternative indie section and I'm up to the T's to V's, so there's not too many in this set, and I'll try and get through this reasonably quickly, and then we'll be on to the W's, and then there's just finishing on a Y band actually at the end. So I'll start off with Tame Impala, and you may have heard of Tame Impala. They did get a lot of attention at one point. I'm not sure if this is their very first album or possibly their second. It's called Innerspeaker. And as the image implies, it's sort of a psychedelic rock band that's kind of bringing back some of the sounds of the 70s, but doing something different with it. Enough that I was interested. At first, I didn't pay them too much attention, so I came to them a bit late. And then I saw this album, had a listen to it, and thought, yeah, okay, I'll give it a go. And I may get a second album, but I've only got the one at the moment. So that's Tame Impala, Innerspeaker. The next band, well, it's not really a band, it's Yorke from Radiohead, creating a sort of an electronic album, but it has got his singing on it. He has done some DJing, so there's obviously an interest in beat mixing and playing around with sounds, and also maybe some field recordings as well. I haven't listened to this for a while. I got it because I had heard good things about it. It is really good, so worth checking out. That's Thom Yorke, and that's The Eraser. It's quite a nice album in terms of how it's produced as well. It's sort of one of these kind of concertinaed fold-outs with some really quite beautiful, almost like woodblock print aesthetic. Don't know how that's so very busy artwork, but really nicely produced, and great production values on that. He's put out a couple of albums, I think maybe even up to 4. I've got this one, came out after The Eraser, and there is another one that I can't quite remember the title of. And more recently he's done a sort of like a soundtrack, and I can't remember what the movie, it's quite a famous old movie that he's sort of re-envisioned the soundtrack for it. But this is Anima. This isn't a soundtrack. This is yet another Thom Yorke album that came after The Eraser, and it was well received. And a friend of mine said, "Oh, you don't have this one? It's worth checking out." And this is also very good. So I've kept up a little bit with Thom Yorke's solo work, and if you like Thom Yorke and Radiohead, and you certainly like Kid A and Amnesia, then those are very similar. He sort of obviously went off creating more of that sound with a great deal of electronica and drum beats in there. Now this other band here is the Tokey. I've managed to put the sticker, or put them back in these plastic bags that have these stickers on them. I've got to sort that out. The artwork is by Misery, and this is a companion piece actually. There's Butterfly and Caterpillar. And there's Caterpillar. I've got a fly buzzing around me. It's come in because we've got very hot weather at the moment. And yeah, I've also put that in the wrong way around, but I kept the plastic bags because they had the little sort of hype sticker on them. Now these are kind of dream poppy. They sort of reference the Beach Boys a little bit with some of the acoustic numbers. Quite summery, upbeat albums, companion pieces from the Tokey, Butterfly, Caterpillar. Doesn't matter which came first, they were released at the same time in 2003. So if you can find them, they're worth having. They're nice little sort of poppy albums, upbeat, quite beautiful. Really nice production values too for such a sort of small independent label. I also have TV on the radio, so I got interested in them because of Dear Science, which is the album that I got first, and that got some radio play. So that's TV on the radio, Dear Science. And I then looked into getting another one. This came out first, Return to Cookie Mountain. They've got a few albums out there. It's funky electro pop or electro rock really. They're kind of sounding a lot like some 80s bands, maybe early Genesis. I get a sort of a Peter Gabriel sound to some of the tracks. There is soul and funk tracks in there, but it's a mix of electronica and rock. yeah, maybe some of the songs are a bit poppy, but it's more rocky than that. And both of the albums are very similar. Dear Science has the opening track on this, I think, got quite a bit of radio play. So definitely check out TV on the radio as being worthwhile. That's all of the T's. There are no U's, but there is a band, a great alt indie band, Vampire Weekend. So I've got all their albums by chance. Contra, I didn't get immediately. I actually got their self-titled album, which came out second. It wasn't their first album, Vampire Weekend. They have them in these cardboard sleeves. It seems to be a format that they typically do. And this is the one that probably got the most attention. Contra flew a little under the radar, but then everybody gave this attention because it sounds a little like Paul Simon's Graceland. There's definitely African sound to the instrumentations in the rhythm section, and it's the same on Contra. So both Contra and Vampire Weekend self-titled have the sort of Paul Simon-esque referential African sort of guitar sound and rhythm section. The lyrics are great, the singing's great. They don't all have that kind of referential Ladysmith Black Mambasa sound. They obviously just capture a little bit of that essence, and some people like them for that, some people don't. Paul Simon's Graceland album was controversial at the time. I'll get into that when we get to that album. But I like a lot of African music. I like what they've done with it, and it's not all African. It's kind of got a world music flavour, let's just say that. But at the same time, they're sort of got a urbane inner city sound because they are from New York. And then they put out this album, Modern Vampires of the City. Now that obviously has a very sort of New York sound. It's less of that sort of African-inspired, world music-inspired sound. They sort of moved away from that a little bit. And this has got a rockier, punkier, eclectic. They're all quite eclectic. But this is sort of, they just took it in a new direction, which is really good because they couldn't keep doing that Graceland-esque sound. It wouldn't have worked. So this actually won a Grammy, I was surprised to find out. So yeah, this, I guess that was in the alternative indie section of the Grammys, if they have such a thing, something like that. It didn't win the main album award, but it certainly won a section and it won a Grammy. It's an outstanding album. It's really quite hard to describe. Great lyrics, again, the voicings are very clear, very upfront, sort of like how I feel about Sufjan Stevens' voice sort of cuts through. So the lead singer's got an amazing voice. I don't know his name off the top of my head, but this is a well worth checking out album. This one is really, really good. So I guess I do have a fourth album. I would say that one's possibly the one to get. But then this one's come out more recently, Father of the Bride. And I really like this album too. This has got a little bit more introspection. I think a member of the band left at this point, and so there has been some changes in the lineup. But it's sort of taken it another direction. So yeah, this one is Father of the Bride and Vampire Weekend's latest album. I think it came out, 2019, so not too old, but not very, very recent. And they seem to just always produce very good, very interesting albums. There's a lot more acoustic music on this one, more folky, but still upbeat pop songs. And the lyrics are incredible. They're really interesting. They're often telling stories. Now, I think when they first came out, aside from that reference to Paul Simon's Graceland, some people dismiss them as being a bit like yacht rock or something. They're kind of upper middle class white boys utilizing African music, so that might have upset a few people. But not just that, producing music that kind of speaks to high net worth individuals, perhaps, who can enjoy themselves in a particular lifestyle. I suppose that's what yacht rock really refers to. I think that's unfortunate that they may have had a little bit of that. They possibly are well off and not really grinding away like some musicians have had to. But they have to have the talent, and the talent is there. I suppose the other bands that kind of got that Trust Fund Kid label were the Strokes, and I think Mumford and Sons kind of got called out because they do sort of folky, working class music, and yet they are all pretty well off young fellows that brought the band together. And I guess Vampire Weekend has that sort of, there's a sniff of that with them. I haven't really investigated that. That's just sort of around the traps that they were fairly privileged to be able to produce such wonderful albums. So I suppose there is something to be said with having the money to have good studio time and spaces to make really good music. But again, the talent has to be there. I never got into the Strokes, but I appreciate that they had a style and a sound that they really were into and produced. It doesn't matter really how much money someone has. If they've got the talent, they can do it well. It shouldn't put you off. But that was one of those things with Vampire Weekend, an unusual sort of attempt to discredit them in some way. And yeah, we'll come round to that whole debate around Paul Simon's Graceland once we look at that album. Like I said, I have a lot of world music. I really like the sound of world music. There will always be people who get upset at the appropriation of different cultures' music. But if you have an appreciation of the actual musicians from Africa, from Mali, from the Middle East, from India, and you understand those sounds and why these people would appreciate them and want to include them in their music, then it does allow you to get past the fact that they may be privileged white kids in New York referencing sort of African beats and also that beautiful guitar sound that you get with African music, just that clear, crisp, and a lot of that beautiful 70s funk and soul from Africa, the original sort of sounds that came out of African musicians back in the day. So yeah, they clearly are worth checking out, as are all the alternative indie albums that I've gone through so far. So coming up next, the W's, and then we just finish on Y's, and then we're done for alternative indie, and I'll do another recap, I think, where I'll just look at the N's through to Y's, and then we'll move on to blues. So please do keep coming back. There's a lot of music to get through. I'm really looking forward to looking at electronica. I'm looking forward to world music and also alt country. I have a section that's full of folk and old country, and also jazz. I've got a lot of jazz as well. So yeah, lots to look forward to, and please hit subscribe. See you soon.